Hello, welcome back to WorkTech. I'm George LaRocque, and we've got more exciting funding news in the industry. I'm joined by Didier Elzinga, the CEO and co-founder of Culture Amp, and they just announced a $100 million Series F round of funding, which brought their valuation to $1.5 billion. So we've got the latest HR technology unicorn with us. Didier, welcome. Thanks for being back and joining us again.
Thank you, George. A year or so since we last spoke.
That's right. That's right. And so much has happened in that year. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, and it feels like 3 years since we spoke.
So, indeed, I think I've aged 3 years.
There you go. So congratulations on the round. It's great. It's great validation. But before we dig in, for anyone who may not know Culture Amp or know you, could you introduce yourself and Culture Amp, tell everyone, where you fit in this work technology ecosystem?
Absolutely. So yes, as you introduced me, Didier Elzinga, I'm the CEO and founder at Culture Amp. And Culture Amp as a platform, we started life very much as an employee engagement platform. So a lot of the people that have heard of us or have seen us in that guise. And over our journey, we've continued to help people understand what matters to their people, but we've also gone deeper into the employee experience. So how end to end do we help people understand that journey and focus their energies on making a difference and delivering on that employee experience? Over the last couple of years, we've expanded out into performance development and thinking about how do we humanize that process? Because if you think originally about employee feedback as being a sort of organizational lens, how do we do that for individuals too? And so now today, and it's probably something we'll spend a bit of time talking about, it's really thinking about employee experience in all of its forms and how do we deliver that? And I think it's certainly a world at the moment where every board, every executive team that I speak to is trying to figure out how do we deliver on the employee experience in this world, given how different it is than just a few years ago.
Yeah, I have to say, Culture Amp was probably it's probably the first entry to market that was really focused on a new model for engagement and culture. And then you've really led by adding, deep analytics and learning and development and really tying not just to the measurement of culture and engagement, but also to the business and, delivering to the employee and also, the manager. And you've really led, you've been right at the front of this, this wave into employee experience, which really was there before COVID. COVID really, underscored. Someone said, I didn't say it, but I've been co-opting it. I don't know who said it, but COVID is not a creator, and but it has accelerated much, and I think that's your platform was really moving in this direction, and in some ways, your customers, I think, probably had an advantage to be able to lean back. So a year ago, you told me a great story about or your perspective when the pandemic hit as a CEO, looking first to the business and then to people. And I'm curious, that was just a few months into the pandemic, but in this past year, what has your observation been as a CEO?
Yeah, it feels crazy to think back and look at that. And I think at the time it was good to see many, many leaders step into what was being asked of them, which was to look after people and to think about what the impact will be. And none of us knew what was going to happen. And so the first thing was we saw everybody go, will I survive? If I'm going to survive, how do I look after my people? And a lot of people had to make very difficult decisions to be able to do that. Since that time, what we've seen was, firstly, because of that, I think there was actually a lift in engagement. So we saw a lift in engagement globally as people went, okay, we can actually see the leaders stepping up to the plate and communicating more and connecting and being more authentic. There was a certain amount of vulnerability. Everyone was working from home. And so people were able to connect with their leaders in a way that they hadn't before. And what we saw happen over time is that as this elongated and as it kept going and got harder and sort of more complex, and then we all opened up and then all closed down and then opened up, is That's sort of transitioned to the point where now what we're seeing is people are exhausted across the board.
Mm.
And that's manifesting in lots of different ways, but you probably seen other people talking about the great resignation.
Right.
And we're seeing attrition rates roughly double in almost every industry and in every org, because it's a confluence of a lot of different events. And the interesting thing is the underlying businesses themselves are actually doing pretty well. There are businesses that have very much struggled, but there are a lot that are doing very, very well, and the stock market's up and we're raising lots of money. But the experience for employees has been tricky, and you're seeing people exhausted by the world events, exhausted by the pace and the growth. And so what we're seeing a lot of companies now doing is like really sitting down going, we have to figure out how to do something different, because if we don't, we're going to burn out all of our people and we're not going to be able to deliver on all these goals that we have. So we've sort of seen employee experience be from a like, let's just save everybody, to this is actually really hard and really important, because for us to succeed, we're going to have to find a way to improve the experience they're having at the moment, because at the moment they're not having the one we want them to have.
Yeah. Always great insights. I have to say that resonates with me and what I'm seeing in my travels. So I'm curious, what, looking at Culture Amp, what are there some things that you're doing internally to address this?
Yeah, I mean, when we think about how we run Culture Amp, there's interesting because there's some things that we started during the COVID crisis that we've kept that I'm really excited about. So one of those was we started doing this daily situation room. So at the height of the crisis, to make good decisions, every day we'd pull leaders together and share what we knew. And so as we came out of it, we actually decided to keep that. We do it 3 days a week now, not 5, but we do it 3 days a week, 30 minutes. But one of the big shifts we've made is it's actually open to every person in the company.
Oh, wow.
So anyone who wants to can dial in. We have a kind of rotating schedule of people that share what's going on. And for me, it's so powerful because it's really about moving context. It's allowing people to have access to context. We have an ops and intel. So it's very much modeled after the team of teams concept. And, on any given day, we'll have anywhere from 50 to 100 people. So sort of 15, 20% of the business will dial in, and we have it in different time zones to make sure that everybody can access it. But that's one of those things that would have been very hard to get up but for the crisis. Yeah. And we're keeping it now because we've seen the value in moving information around. So that's something that's working well for us.
Yeah, I love that. The transparency and opportunity. People don't feel like they have to be. It's not there. It's not another meeting that I must attend. But when they need that information, they're looking for that insight. They're able to dial in. That's a great tip for everyone listening. So let's talk about the deal. That's the headline that got everybody here. This is a big round of funding, and at the same time a big valuation. So first on the funding, the timing of this, what drove the timing? Was it something in the market or something in the business or both? What brought you to this raise?
Yeah, it was an interesting process from a timing point of view. So as we came into 2021, as many businesses last year, we were fortunate that we'd raised, so we had capital. It wasn't like we were in trouble, but we were like, what's the world going to look like? How long is this going to last? How difficult is this going to be? And everybody went through the same thing. And what we saw was Q2 was existentially very challenging. Q3, everything started to come back. Q4, we were going, wow, like the world's coming back better than we thought. There's a lot of demand. We're helping our customers with a problem that they know they have. And so we really started growing well through that period. We actually, because to respond to the thing, we actually sat down and, like a lot of people, we were very disciplined with cash. So we actually became cash flow positive. And we were, we went from being a fast growth burning company to being cash flow positive and still growing at a reasonable pace. So when we came into 21, we were looking at going, we're growing strongly. We actually have plenty of money. We don't need to raise. So we weren't going to the market going, great, let's go get some money. As many people would know, the markets have continued to run. And so it was one of those situations where we were getting a lot of people talking to us and saying, if you want to raise, you can, and it's very attractive valuations. And as we continued to grow, we were looking at the opportunity and we were looking at what we were doing and we're thinking, okay, we're actually at this point now, we're a really interesting inflection point where there's an opportunity to really build a category here, and it goes back to what we were just talking about, which is employee experience as a concept is somewhat nebulous. Like, is that just customer experience applied to employees? Is it how you connect a bunch of different systems? And for us, it's actually something much more holistic than that. Employee experience is, how do we lift that experience that every employee is having? Because that's what we think is the biggest driver of both business success, but also something that's important to individuals. And so to do that, we really need to be able to think on a longer scale. And so this gave us an opportunity to kind of double down on that vision and sit down and say, what does it mean to go build something really long-term? And can we get some people that believe in that vision and want to back us on that journey? And that's where this came from.
So would that translate into the funding going into, brand and, go to market, or is that more about the product and the platform?
I mean, there's definitely, when you're a VC-backed company, you're always spending on go-to-market. And for us, continuing to invest, we're already global. We've been global since the beginning. So, we were New York, London, San Francisco, Melbourne 5 years ago now. So we've been global for a long time. We have 4,000 customers in 143 countries. Right. A lot of our strategy last year was actually around supporting internationalization. We have dual data centers, so we're well configured for that. But we certainly want to be able to spend behind it. And this certainly helps us, thinking about whether it's boots on the ground or Zooms on the ground or whatever the term is now, being where everybody is something we're spending money on. But at the end of the day, you're also a product company. So for me, this is also about being able to place long-term product bets in terms of where we want to evolve the platform, how we want to bring all of this together. Because yes, there are companies that have people analytics departments and so on that can sort of piece together an end-to-end employee experience, but that's not something that's available to most companies. This is not data that when the board's sitting there going, how are we going with bringing everyone back to work? And is that affecting our high performers? And what's that going to do? They're just not able to combine all that data. And so we really want to be able to, provide the platform to do it. And at the same time, one of the things that worked really well for us last year was we rolled out this skills coach idea, which is about a behavioral model of delivering content around things that managers and leaders need. Because the key insight we had, and it was brought out last year as everyone responded to COVID, is if you want to up-level the experience that your employees are having, managers are the ones that need the capability to do that. So how do you help up-level the capability of managers at the same time as the managers are going through all the same pain that those employees are? Like, the employees are exhausted, they're overworked, they're dealing with a very complicated world. So are your managers.
Right.
Yet
right.
The expectations of those managers have shot through the roof. Racial dynamics, DEI, high-performing teams, everybody's working from home. So your manager today needs to be 10 times better than they were 2 years ago. And so we've really, a lot of what investors got excited about, and also what we're really excited about from a platform point of view, is how do you be that platform for the managers? How do you help the managers deliver on the employee experience?
Yeah, that's a huge opportunity in the market, because when this happened, you mentioned they need to be 10 times better than 2 years ago. It's generally understood that managers weren't that great 2 years ago. So it's a big gap. I mean, they were, I'm not going to throw a blanket over every manager, but that's, development is an area. I think I saw a stat where most managers stepped into leadership roles in their 30s, but didn't get any training until they were in their 40s. And that, I think that speaks to a lot of the challenge that we're in. All right, staying on the deal, the valuation, it's a big valuation, and that comes with, new expectations, right? $1.5 billion company. What does that mean to Culture Amp? What as the CEO, how do you internalize that valuation, and, what path does that put you on now?
So I think firstly, it's validation for the space. I like the fact that we've seen a few, decent size HR tech businesses spin up, and this is showing people that you can build great, enduring businesses in fields that aren't just developer tools. there's lots of great developer tools worth billions of dollars. And now we're actually seeing some companies that are focused on employee experience that are worth that sort of money too. So, whether it's BetterUp, whether it's us, whatever. So I think that part is just exciting for me as somebody that cares about the space and wants people to have capability. I think I'm really excited by that. For us as an organization, I mean, last year we were on the Cloud 100, so we were considered one of the most valuable private SaaS businesses in the world, and so that was a really nice point in terms of, okay, we're now at a scale where we're starting to make a difference. Honestly, though, I mean, I look at it and I go, the valuation is great. It's a good multiple. It's not a stupid multiple. Our business is growing very, very quickly, so I'm very comfortable that my investors are already very happy with the money that they've invested at the price they're at. So I'm not worried about living into that valuation. I know that I can go build a business that's worth many times that over the coming years. And so that's a good feeling, but it is also nice to be able to say, actually, we're at a scale that very few companies get to. And very few companies get at that point and can make that much of a difference in the world. So it was a nice sort of underline, and NASDAQ congratulated us on their Times Square. And so that was a nice little moment to kind of go, oh, we're actually at that point.
I saw that. I saw some employees sharing that on LinkedIn and Twitter and whatnot. That's exciting. And I have to say that there have been a number of valuations come out in the space. I'm not going to name any names, but sometimes, it makes me scratch my head. Where's that coming from? Culture Amp's valuation was not one of those, knowing the business. So to your point, this makes good sense to me. And if anything, you probably could have raised more. And if you wanted to, you could have goosed your valuation. But, I think smart money is always the best money, and good on you.
And now's not time for that. Like, there's still plenty of work to do. There's still a long way to go. And so we don't want to cash any chips in.
Right.
We want to keep building. And I do think of it now as we've got a ticket to the right game. Now we can actually really focus on it. And I don't feel like we're at the point where it's just, great, we've raised money, let's just go expand into lots of markets. I actually think we're going to do more innovation in the next 3 years than we've done at any point in the life of the company. And that's scary trying to do it at this scale, but that's what the space needs.
Right.
Like, these problems have not been solved, and we need to continue to innovate and continue to give those things to our customers.
Yeah. That's a great segue into, I always like to ask about the employees. How would you see this? But I know it's not like everything stops and then you start over. So there's been a flow leading into this. But how would you see this impacting employees? It sounds like there's an opportunity for some great innovation. How do you see them experiencing this?
As in terms of people that will be using Culture Amp as an employee?
Our employees. Yeah,
Okay, cool. No. So I mean, the big thing for us at Culture Amp is, as I said, it allows us to continue to place long-term bets, and so we can invest behind those ideas and really invest in that innovation. And part of that's hiring. Like, we've been hiring like crazy. We hired 130 people last quarter, and we'll probably add 300 people this year. And just hiring people doesn't itself do anything, but it's an opportunity to realize all the places where we can bring in people, and actually bringing those people in creates more space for the people we already have too. So we're really excited about some of the things that we've always said, wouldn't it be great if we could do that? Well, let's go get someone really good at that and connect them with somebody that's already working on it, and give them enough time to go do it well. And so I think coming out of last year as well, we at Culture Amp, like many companies, everybody was wearing 5 hats, doing 20 things, and was exhausted. And so we're excited to be able to go, look, we've got reinforcements. We can come and support you. We can get more people to come and help behind what you're doing, because it's not sustainable to continue to work at that pace. Yeah. And so a lot for me is this helps us try and move to a more sustainable footing, because that's what we need if we're going to be successful over 10, 20 years, not just 6, 12 months.
Right. Well, that's great. Well, I could go on and on, but I think we've covered all the bases and some. I always appreciate the transparency and insights that you bring to the conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Didier, and congrats again.
My pleasure. Always love talking to you and getting to share this with the community. So thank you, George.
Yeah, and let's not forget, what's the best way for folks to learn more about Culture Amp and what you have going on?
Yeah, so obviously the website's the great intro point on that. We just finished our Culture First Global event, so we're going to start putting up some of the material from that. And I think if anybody wants to understand, who Culture Amp is and what it is, that event series that we run is the best example of it. So that will connect you with Priya Parker and Ibrahim Kendi and Adam Grant and all those sorts of people. So I think joining the Culture Amp community is the best way for anybody to get to understand what Culture Amp is about.
Yeah. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. Thanks again. And thank you to everyone who's watching.
Thank you all.